Welcome back to the Jeremiah Show. Martin Nethercutt, singer, writer, producer, musician, creator. Geist Music, Book of Shadows is our conversation today. It's one out of three books: the Book of Mirrors, the Book of Shadows, and the Book of Light. Martin, welcome back. Fascinating story on screen in your ears, but also, the music is incredible, but your life story is so incredible. What happens next for you?
Well, after I got out of Kassel in the northern part of Germany, I went down to Munich. I dated the ex-girlfriend of my rhythm guitar player, and I worked at the airport. I was an export specialist because I spoke English. So the Germans are like, "Oh, I put him in expediting." So I was singing demos. I was wandering around, no plan, no aim. And then I got a call from Harold Faltermeyer, who was at the time working on Top Gun. And he said, "I heard your voice. I heard your demo. Come on down, sing this song I got prepared for Kenny Loggins. I don't know if he's going to do it, but Highway to the Danger Zone, you'll get it." And at the time, Billy Idol and Steve Stevens, who I still admire to this day. He's one of the greatest riff guitar players I've ever heard. And all of a sudden, I'm in this giant studio in the south of Munich, and the beer is flowing, and we're just recording. And Patti LaBelle walks out, and I'm like, "Holy crap! This is where I need to be, right? All the pros." So he put me on the mic for Danger Zone, and I sang the original demo for Kenny Loggins to overdub to do it right.
That's
So
incredible.
yeah, he paid me like $500 for the demo and goes like, "Yeah, we'll call you later."
Do you still have the demo?
No, I
I'd
don't.
love to hear your version.
I know. There's actually I was doing a lot of commercial work back then. This is the late '80s. So I was doing a lot of commercial work, and there was a YouTube link to something that I did. Oh my God, I don't even remember, for BMW, but there's a whole group of people now on these forums that are looking like, "Who's the original artist? Can you get me a copy?" I'm like, "We know it's you." I'm like, "I didn't even remember I did that." You know? So that kind of built the bridge for me to feel confident about myself enough to, jump with the help of Ruth, my wife, um, to jump the big pond and go to LA and try it, not realizing you're one of thousands that are trying to do this. But I worked with Steve Ferris from Mr. Mister. We were trying to get a band together early '90s. And all of a sudden, Pearl Jam came out, Nirvana, all that angst stuff, no chords, just like yell and scream. I'm like, no song structure. I'm like, wait a second, how does that get played? We just had Rick Astley. And I'm like, yeah. So I was a big Mr. Mister fan. So I worked with Steve for a minute. And then we lost our house in the earthquake in Northridge, and we moved to Nashville. Ruth had a job with Warner Chappell producing some writing lyrics for Garth Brooks' sister, and we got into this whole country thing. Now, part of my upbringing was, on one hand, Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath, but on the other hand were the Eagles and Jackson Browne. I liked both, and that made me sort of like an oddity in my world, because
Hmm.
I loved the vocal harmonies that the Eagles produced, but I loved Tony Iommi's, thriving hammer down there in Sabbath. So I'm like, how are you gonna? And the result now is that I mix both cultures on my music, because I believe that if you have great vocals, the rest is like they say, is instrumentation that can be used to showcase light and dark. So Book of Shadows is something where witches write down the spells that they create for other people, and write down and see if they work. Okay, so in the Book of Shadows, That is one esoteric meaning of it. Like Book of Mirrors is the self-reflection.
Right.
Book of Light is the ascension. And so pandemic 2020, I was sitting at home. I had some songs together after the first album, and I'm like, oh, how am I going to do this? Well, why don't we just tell a story here? You know, and because nobody's going out, nobody's seeing shows, no, you know, everything's canceled. But at the same time, you had Zoom, and all of a sudden, everybody's online, and you could collaborate with people thousands of miles away.
Mhm.
That was never heard of before. You know, you had to go to a studio, meet up with people, even if you didn't like the guy, he was still recording your stuff, so you had to be nice. Now it's like, oh, here's the track, play something, I'll sit in and, you know, do all that stuff. So it gave me the opportunity to get really exciting musicians on the project because everybody's sitting at home doing their stuff, you know, nobody was working.
Did you find that that your creativity uh, was amplified during that time?
Absolutely. You
Not
know, they
nowhere to go
always
with it?
say, yeah, they always say in the business, no love song has ever been written with a joyous heart. You got to be depressed. You got to be hanging on by a thread. That's when the best music happens. Is because your emotion is so raw and so bare that you know, you just let it out and see what happens. And sometimes demos are better than the actual production. A lot of times that
Mhm.
demo that got you excited as a producer, like, oh, I want to do that, never turns out to be, in 99% of cases, never turns out to be the better version of the actual original. So you know, it's, so yes, that inspired me. And sitting up here in my library looking outside and there's no cars on the road, and I'm like, what if this is literally the end? And how would you, so the vision started to emerge, right? It started to build itself. I had the songs. Now, what do you do in between? I'm like, okay, what are we going to do here? So I started writing script. You know, from my own personal experiences, obviously Martin Cole is my reflection, but I wanted to make him darker. I wanted to make him suffer. I wanted to make him go through all these changes. AI is looming. Nobody's working anymore. We're all sitting on the couch. So this was 5 years ago, all right? And little did I know that some of this stuff is now coming into reality. And I don't want to take credit for it because I'm a huge Kurzweil fan, and Ray Kurzweil, is a futurist. And if you have a chance, go see him on YouTube because it'll just blow your mind where we're going to be going in the next year. You know, blockchain, gaming,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So that's how the songs came about. And then I called a couple of people, said if they were willing to come by or send me tracks or whatever. And, you know, you just work at it and put stuff together and see what flies. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It doesn't matter. It's progress. It's, you keep going. And I think that's what keeps you young, is to not let go of that vision that you had at a 12-year-old
Right.
when you heard
Creative
your first Sabbath
creativity.
record, you know.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I really loved about this experience is it's fully envelops your world. It takes over, you know, the sound you mentioned. You've got you know, it comes to life in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It comes to life visually. The videos that accompany the story, um, really, every shot, every scene is it picks and just pushes that story forward. But it's so full.
Mm-hmm.
The visuals are so full. The music's so full. The story really is compelling, and
Mm-hmm.
you know you want to see where it goes. So
Mm-hmm.
Geist Music tells the story of Martin Cole's profound musical journey through a trilogy of albums, The Book of Shadows, The Book of Light, and The Book of Mirrors. This narrative explores Martin Cole's odyssey through themes of darkness, illumination, and introspection. Each album is rich with music, vocals, lyrics, and visuals, and immerses listeners into a compelling exploration of Martin Cole's inner world, reflecting his struggles, his insights, and ultimate transformation. This multimedia experience invites audiences to delve into a deeply emotional and reflective narrative arc. It's told through evocative and immersive musical experience that transcends conventional sound boundaries. Rooted in a fusion of electronic and organic elements, it draws listeners into an otherworldly realm where the ethereal meets the visceral. And go to geistmusic.com. Do yourself a favor and listen for yourself. We'll be right back with Martin Nethercutt.